What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the Asian MMA podcast, where we talk about everything and anything going on in the world of Asian MMA. This episode is brought to you by New Year's resolutions you have absolutely no intention of keeping. I'm Dana Blouin, and today we're talking about all the Asian MMA New Year goodness. Anything you might have missed over the holiday break, I'm going to kind of go over all of it now, and we're going to get into it. I'm sure a lot of you know that New Year MMA is sort of a tradition in Asia, going back to the Pride days. And it really seems like Rizin has picked up that mantle, and they're really kind of carrying that on. They're doing New Year's MMA again. And while they don't have any fight action from one championship, we did get that Rizin Asian MMA, and we have a little bit of news about one that we'll talk about later as well. Well, I want to talk about that New Year's MMA from Rizin. First things first, any of you guys who follow Asian MMA, remember I covered the whole Floyd Mayweather situation before, where he went for a press conference and they said he was going to fight. He flew back to the U.S. He's like, no, it's a lie. It's not going to happen. And it ended up happening. So we have to talk about his, now in air quotes, fight. Or, as I've kind of taken to calling it the past few days with some of my friends, was basically a boxing drive-by worth $9 million to Floyd Mayweather. Everyone knows he fought undefeated kickboxer Tenshin, and you can call it a fight if you want, and it may have been a real fight. It may have been a work. I don't know. But after 3 knockdowns in the first round, Tenshin's corner threw in the towel and ended it. Now, I don't know. For me, it felt like a work. It looked like a work. Very suspect. I'm not going to go as far as to say it absolutely was. And maybe it was and Floyd had no idea about it. I don't know. Now, let's say if, and it's a big if, it wasn't a work. Floyd was the bigger, more experienced fighter. He was fighting under a rule set he was comfortable with, and Tenshin wasn't able to utilize the kicks that he's really known for. We never saw Floyd even think he could have been in trouble. I'm not even sure Floyd broke a sweat. That was the main event. It was a weird way to finish the night, but overall, Rizin put together a really good card for us. Some of the other fights that I think are worth mentioning from the card, Kyoji Hoguchai, he claimed the first ever Rizin Bantamweight Championship by choking out Bellator champ Darren Caldwell in the 3rd round. It was a good fight, fairly competitive going all the way through, and good finish. It was a strong finish. Really decisive, and I like seeing that Rizin is crowning champs, because it makes me think we're going to start to see, hopefully, this necessarily isn't true because we never saw this in Pride, but a little bit more structure to the divisions. Former Invicta FC champ Ayaka Hamasaki defeated Kana Asako to claim the Rizin Women's super-atomweight title. It was a 2nd-round armbar, beautiful finish, really good fight. The next one is a tough one just to talk about, but pretty much a perennial open weight women fighter, Gabby Garcia, tapped out Barbara, I don't even know how to say her last name, Nepomuceno, with a 1st-round Americana. And even though these are 2 big women, Gabby Garcia is a freak show, and she was 10 kgs heavier than her opponent, Barbara, but at the end of the day, this is the type of fight you really expect in Japan. Japanese MMA has always been an outlier in this regard, that they'll put on these freak show fights for no reason other than why not? I remember back in the Pride days, we'd see 60 kg guys fighting Yokozunas. They're okay with that. They like it. It's cool. Just sometimes they're not super competitive. And unfortunately, Gabby Garcia is a very skilled fighter, and she's huge. No matter when she fights, it's going to be a freak show. Of course, I'm happy she can make a living doing this. There's a platform for her. That's fantastic. But I am getting a bit tired of kind of just seeing her smash women. Even though they're getting women closer in her weight, there's no one at that size who's as athletic or who is as hormonally supplemented or even skilled in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as her. And so they're all these one-sided fights. I'll still watch it whenever Gabby fights because I find it entertaining, but it is getting a bit old. It's a bit old hat. Now, what is hands down one of the nastiest eye injuries I have ever seen? Ever. I mean, this is, if you haven't seen it, go Google this. Yusuke Yache, he got one of the nastiest eye injuries I've ever seen. His eye was just completely swollen. It was bleeding. Couldn't even open it. And it pretty much, it is what ended his fight with UFC vet Johnny Case. Again, Google Yusuke Yachi. Take a look at the injury. If you don't think it's one of the most brutal things ever, you're crazy. It was an insane injury. Now, I want to move on to One Championship because we have some really interesting news from them. Over the holiday break, they announced that they have inked a broadcast deal with TV Tokyo for weekly content, both live and recorded, and that's going to have them on free TV, analog and digital broadcasting in Japan, as well as the cable platform for Tokyo TV. Now, this is the second major broadcast deal we've seen one sign, the other one being TNT in the US. And, this really rounds out the year for them with really strong TV presence in two high-dollar major markets, US and Japan. And this is a major win for one. I mean, they haven't really been on TV in Japan. They haven't been popular there. I know that this has been something they've been pushing all of 2018, and they see this as a key market for their success. I think especially with the e-gaming. And I think they view the ability to break in and do shows in Japan probably as a way to get leverage in the U.S. market because they're hoping people will sort of start to see that pride nostalgia with one that maybe they're sort of associating with Rizin right now. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case. I don't even know if that's what one really wants, but that's what I suspect. And I know from talking to people at One, Japan has been a major push in 2018 for them. Chatri, when I interviewed him middle of last year, that's what he was talking about, is that Japan was one of the big markets that they were looking at. Makes a lot of sense. It's a big move in the right direction for them. Now, I think everyone knows that they're actually going to Japan Q1 next year. They're going at the end of March. It's going to be their first ever event there, and it is a stacked card. They've got 3 titles on the line, and it's also the debut of Demetrius Johnson and Eddie Alvarez for one. And I'm going to talk more about those matchups in the next episode. I'm doing an entire episode just about the matchups for DJ and Eddie because there's some interesting dynamics there and some things that I really want to talk about with guarding one and those particular fighters, and a few interesting things I haven't seen mentioned in the media yet. So I'll probably record that over the weekend and maybe drop that on Monday. The other big news for One Championship, and probably the biggest thing that they announced right around the New Year, Chachi Sityanthong put a tweet out and announced One Championship is going to have an absolutely insane schedule with 45 events in 2019. 45 events. They're going to break down like this. 24 One Championship events. That's their main MMA events that you're used to seeing now. They're big stadium shows that they hold in Singapore, Bangkok, Jakarta, KL. 24 of those. It's 2 a month. 24 of those. 12 One Hero Series events. So that's like their kickboxing, whatever other martial arts they're doing, because one of the big things Chatri's talked about for like the vision for One Championship is it's not an MMA organization, it's a martial arts organization. So he's trying to actually bring in all these different things. They're doing kickboxing, they're doing Muay Thai, boxing. Sisuke actually had a world championship fight in Bangkok back in 2018 that I was at under the One Championship banner. I think it was a WBA title fight. They're mixing all these combat sports, all these martial arts together. So That's kind of where that one series event sort of sits. The other interesting one is the One Warrior Series. They're going to double the amount of those. They did 3 last year. They're doing 6 in 2019. 6 One Warrior Series. We've seen a few interesting people come up through that platform right now. One of the ones that I'm really interested in, Rocky Batole. He came through One Warrior Series. He had his first loss in one championship. He had been undefeated up until that point, but he sort of came through that development rank, and Rich Franklin's heading that up, and he's going around to like all these different gyms, all these different places in Asia, and kind of finding unknown talent and bringing it through the system, kind of developing it within the one ecosystem, because of the way that sort of smaller shows are structured here, or not structured for that matter. It's tough to find local fighters who really have a good experience early on in some cases when they're fighting solely in Asia. So it's a smart move by one to create talent. It also gives them a ton of content that they can use online, show on TV, build a reality series around, because one is all about the content and all about getting in front of eyes. Very smart move. In the last event, they're going to have 3 one esports events. Now, I don't know if those are going to piggyback on top of other events. I would imagine Japan is going to be one of them. Makes sense to do it there. It's a huge market for esports. Obviously, we know that Demetrius Johnson is going to be attached to that. He's the brand ambassador for One Esports. He's had sponsorship deals with Microsoft and Xbox in the past. I'm excited to see that as well. I think it's going to add a whole new element to the content side and also to the marketability of some of these fighters. Insane schedule, and it is great for me. It's tons of Asian MMA for me to cover, so I'll be producing a lot more fight previews, fight reviews for you guys. Also coming up, if I don't get a chance to talk about this in another episode before the event, coming up, I believe in Jakarta, is the first one event of the year. I want to give a big shout out to my friend AJ Pyro, who's actually fighting on that card. 10 weeks ago, I'm actually friends with AJ on a personal level, and his wife was actually a producer for one of my previous shows. AJ had surgery and had a tumor removed from, I believe, his saliva gland 10 weeks ago. 10 weeks ago. And, I just saw him pro wrestling in KL, because he also does pro wrestling with Malaysian Pro Wrestling. He did their big battle royal show there to end out the year. And now he took a fight coming up in January, 10 weeks. It'll essentially be 12 weeks after his surgery. He's an absolute beast. And I just wanted to give a shout out to him. Good luck, man. I know you're training hard, AJ. Go do it. Hopefully I'll get to preview that card. I'll record something early next week and try to get that done. But if I don't, if my schedule's too tight, just big shout out to him, guys. Check out that one card and check out AJ Pyro. I'm going to actually throw a link to his Instagram down in the show notes. I want you guys to check out. The guy's a beast. He's in his 40s and he's absolutely shredded. He's just an amazingly good dude as well, other than the fact that he's a cat lover. And I know I'm going to get some hate for that, but AJ is a super cat lover. But, he's just a really good-hearted guy, and he does a lot of good for not just the MMA community, but communities around Asia. He gives back quite a bit. I'm glad that his surgery went well. He's recovered, and that I'm going to get to see him fight again. Also, guys, as one last note, I am now also contributing to the MMA Rankings Discussion over on Asian Persuasion MMA. My friend Leon is running that, and I've known him for over a year now, just through the Asian MMA scene. He does a great job creating coverage, and you can check out the rankings. I'll leave a link in the show notes, or just check out the Asian Persuasion MMA website, apmma.net. All those links will be in the show notes as well. We're going to try to have, I believe Leon wants to start doing monthly or weekly updates to the rankings, and he's got a handful of us from the local community actually contributing to the conversation and wants to kind of keep that going. I think it's going to be a good place to see sort of like the global MMA rankings and some of that, how the Asian fighters sort of fit into that dynamic. I'll be interested to see just how it evolves over the next year as they're really just launching, even though he's been running it as sort of a social media side project for so long. You know, they're based in Malaysia. Good organization. Check it out and check the rankings out. Let me know what you guys think of the rankings, if there's some fighters that you think are maybe missing from there. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Happy New Year. And to stay up to date with all things Asian MMA, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and Facebook. I'll have all the links in the show notes. Check it out.